What's up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida, coming at you live every Wednesday at 8 p.m., going over the market stats, the news you need to know about if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing here in northeastern Florida. And we're doing a Q&A. So if you're watching it live, you're watching the replay, make sure you throw those comments below. I will answer them as soon as I can, especially if it's relevant to a story. I think I'm just going to stop and answer the questions as soon as I can, because sometimes we get to the end and then I don't know what the question's about anymore. Well, it looks like we couldn't get on two destinations for whatever reason, so looks like the Facebook page and the YouTube or the Instagram channel is down for some reason, but it is what it is. We're going to rock out here with the YouTube channel and just go forward. But this week, guys, I had a super busy day today. That's why I'm a little late here right now, starting at 8:03. I just scarfed down some dinner. So we're going to skip the market stats, but I will say probably starting next week, what I'm going to start doing, and this is also going to be part of my newsletter as well, is I'm going to start breaking down different segments of the market at the very beginning. So it won't be the same thing every single week like I've been doing in the past. I think what I'm going to do is do a deep dive on certain topics that I think are important that may make sense for you, may not. So for example, I'm going to be putting together a video just all about condos and buying a condo here and how the state of Florida has changed, and there's been some big changes. So if you are looking to buy a condo, reach out to me, because there are some huge changes that you need to know about before you do it. Man, a little bit of sauce in my throat. So what I'm going to do is just take that segment of the market. We'll talk about condos for 5 minutes before I dive into the news stories. And I think this will be, maybe it'll be more of a deep dive for 5 minutes, not necessarily like a market update like we've been doing, but just like a deep dive on one single topic. And I think that'll be a good segue. And then that deep dive will also then be created into a blog, which will be a part of the newsletter. This is my master plan here. So if you want to get on the newsletter, reach out to me directly. Just send me your email. We can put you on the newsletter. Comes out twice a week. The first stuff is like my wife handles the first email that goes out, which is going to be like our deal of the week when it comes down to new construction. It's going to be more of the fun things that are going on in St. Johns County, the events for the weekend, things to check out. Whereas the Friday newsletter is more or less my field, where I'm just looking at the stats. I want to look at the stats, I want to give the information. It's going to be a recap of this live. There'll also be all the news links for the stories that we cover here, and any of the data that we talk about will be on that following Friday. So this Friday will be the next newsletter that will come out. That'll have the information for today, plus all the market stats that we talk about. And in addition, this new style of like, hey, I want to take a deep dive on certain topics every single month. So well, every single week, really. So it'll be a new deep dive every single week, which I think will be fun. So let's go ahead and go on to the news stories here, guys. We'll talk about some things that we've been covering, and things, especially if you're looking to buy a home in the area, you probably have a question about this. So take a look. Instagram failed. I'm not sure what happened, but it is what it is. So here's the inflation breakdown for July 2024 in one chart. The Consumer Price Index rose 2.9% in July 2024 from a year earlier, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. That was the lowest reading since March of 2021. Inflation for consumer staples has eased considerably, economists say. And that's what we've been talking about, guys. The Fed wanted to raise the federal funds rate so that they could cool off inflation. And they weren't going to back off that where we're at right now in lower rates until they started to see inflation start to cool and get down to the 2% target. Unfortunately, prices will never go back down to what they were, but they are starting to go down. So all items are 2.9%. CNBC actually put together a great little article here with good information. It's funny now. It's like reporting is just like half the time you go on a news story, and some of them we'll probably see here, they're like 3 paragraphs. And it's like, man, I could have put that in ChatGPT and made it a lot better. But inflation during the pandemic was 9.1% in mid-2022, which was the highest level since 1981. So, and like I said, they want to get down to that 2%. So if you look at this graph here, we are trending downwards, right? Which is what we want. And the prices have hurt everyone, right? So it makes it really difficult. Cost of housing's gone up still, and that's one thing that's remained stubborn. And I don't know if that's going to change necessarily, especially if inflation goes down. Our market, our economy has started to weaken slightly. So that could, there was talk this week that there might be an emergency Fed meeting so that they drop the rates. That I don't think that happened. Well, at least I haven't heard about it. I'm pretty up on this stuff. But everyone is expecting in September for Jerome Powell and the Fed to lower the federal funds rate. And that's why we've seen a decline in interest rates today, because the market is starting to price these things in because they're expecting that stuff. So if we go into September and that doesn't happen, I imagine interest rates will probably shoot back up. But we'll keep an eye on it, of course, and try to keep you guys as informed as possible. All right. On to the next news story here, guys. So this is something that we talked about before. Buying a home in Florida, and not just in Florida, this is across the entire country, gets more complicated thanks to new rules. The changes were sparked by a series of antitrust lawsuits against the National Association of Realtors. And before I start with this, there's so many realtors that are upset with the National Association of Realtors, myself included. They really kind of felt to me that they just kind of laid down, right, in terms of this lawsuit. If you guys don't know, quick recap, the lawsuit is essentially coming from people who used agents to sell their home and felt that the agent was paid too much and that agents colluded to keep commission percentages high. Now, in my experience, commission has always been negotiable. Now, obviously, I'm biased. I'm an agent. And I've had sellers negotiate commission with me a bunch, right? And essentially what's happening now in this new world, we're going to be decoupling the buyer's agent commission from the total commission that the seller would pay initially, right? So if I were to go list your house right now, this is before all these changes, before this lawsuit. This is now going to be the past, but we'd list it for a total percentage. Now I would list it for 5 to 6%, right? If I go lower than that, it depends on the price point, right? So really, if it's under 500,000, I can't really do anything lower than 5 to 6%. If it's above 500, if it's $1 million property, yeah, of course we can negotiate on that commission. I'm going to be making a lot more money for relatively the same amount of work. So it is scalable. Like if you look at $1 million properties versus $500,000 properties, like the commissions are different, and that's just something that naturally happens because sellers want to protect their equity. So the seller would typically pay for they'd pay me as the listing broker or the representative of the listing brokerage, and then our brokerage would then pay the buyer's agent broker, and this was compensation, right? So we had cooperating brokers that were getting compensated. The seller was paying for that out of their net. Now in this new world, essentially, if you were to come and you say, hey Thomas, I want to work with you, I want to be a buyer, and I want to go buy a house with you. Well, before we didn't legally have to sign paperwork, though many agents do sign paperwork with whoever they're working with saying like, hey, I'm asking for 3%. If the seller's offering 2%, I'm still expecting to get paid 3%. So that's going to be money that's going to come out of your pocket. So now that's not going to be covered on the MLS at all. They're not going to be offering a buyer agent commission of 2.5%, 3%, 2%, whatever that is. That's going to be something that me and you, if you're working with me as a buyer, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to say, hey, I'm going to ask for 3%. And, we'll have the interview about why I think I deserve 3%. And we go into the details on that. But any offer that we write will be including that 3% to be paid by the seller. So is there a possibility that it doesn't work out like that? For sure. Because it's an offer, right? So it's a negotiation point. The seller may want to negotiate, hey, let's not negotiate too much on the buyer's concession, but what if you took 2.5% versus 3% as the buyer's agent? Are you willing to do that? It becomes a negotiation piece of the initial offer, which I think is really interesting. I think that's a good thing overall for both sellers and buyers, right? Because buyers then are fully informed. Sellers also can negotiate that down a little bit, when initially in the past, that's already negotiated with me. Like, you're paying this regardless, right? So it's going to be very interesting. I think there's going to be some rocky times ahead just because it's new to everyone. I don't really think anything fundamentally is going to change. I think a year from now, this news story here is going to be kind of laughable. But I could be wrong, right? I personally think like anyone that's working with anyone expects to pay them some type of money. And my whole job is to make sure, didn't mean to click that. My whole job is to negotiate that into the contract so that no more money comes out of your pocket. So that's how we're going to play it. That's how we're going to move forward. But essentially with this new lawsuit, they're not going to be able to advertise that you're going to be paying a buyer agent commission. And in a way, that's a good thing, because if you're a seller and you're listing like, hey, I'm going to put up my house and I want to, and I know I typically pay 6%, so I'm going to pay 6%. Well, now you might only pay 3% to your listing broker, and then the buyer's agent could come in and say, hey, we're going to give you if they're coming in with a great offer and they're wanting 3%, you're probably going to pay the 3%, right? Every other offer, all the terms in your offer is something that you want. If they're not, well, you're going to negotiate them. And that puts some more leverage back in the seller's pocket, even though they already had a lot of leverage these past couple of years. And on the buyer side, right, that's just like, for me, I'm sorry, I keep switching back here. On the buyer side, there's so many terrible agents out there, right? There's not, it's really sad. The barrier to entry for real estate agents needs to be raised. I'm 100% for that. I think that should have been the first step before we changed all of this. Because honestly, it's just like lawyers getting paid at this point. But I think the bar should be raised for real estate agents, and I think this is going to cause that to be raised, because before it was just like, hey, who can show me this house the fastest, right? And then you would work with anyone who would pick up the phone and would show you that house. Now it's going to be like, okay, well, I'm paying for this service. I have certain expectations of why I'm paying for this service. And you're going to start interviewing a buyer's agent that's going to represent you, and you're going to interview and get the best one, right? Because that's what you want if you're going to pay the money. So ultimately, I think that's a good thing, because there's so many terrible agents in here that will just, for a long time, Zillow's now changed their business model because of all this, but for a long time, I could be the worst agent, right? But I could own this zip code here. I could buy it from Zillow, where I get all these leads. They call me, and then they say, hey, I want to see this house on 123 Main Street. Okay, great. I'll meet you there. And I could totally not know what I'm talking about. But typically, and this is kind of the weird statistic, but I think it's like 80% of people work with the first person they come in contact with, opposed to interviewing. And that's because of the structure of how it was. Essentially, you were paying for the house, and then the seller was paying the agent, so it didn't feel like it was coming out of your pocket, even though you paid for the house. So in reality, all commissions were paid by the buyer. So I think in this new world, people are going to want to work with the best if they're going to be paying the 2.5% to 3%, right? And there's going to be situations where people don't want to work with an agent at all, and they'll say, I'm going to go straight to the listing agent. Well, you can do that, right? And you always could do that. You could totally have done that before. You didn't have to use buyer's agent before. So nothing's really changed on that end. So there will always be those people. Either way, if you guys have any questions about this, let me know. I'm here to help. I just actually was in a 2-hour training about this today, and like how agents should talk, and like how there's a lot of legal things that, for example, if you run an open house, let's say I'm listing a property, I'm going to run an open house for my seller, and a buyer comes in and starts talking to me about the property. Now I can talk to them about the property. Whatever information is on the MLS, I'm allowed to convey to them. Whenever we start talking about offers, I then have to present them with a buyer agency agreement, saying like, hey, I can't talk anymore, because at this point we're getting into the offer. It's becoming a meaningful conversation. Which is just going to be very, very interesting to see. And they even said like you might even want to take it off site, because at that point, like your seller might have recording, they might be listening, who knows, right? But hey, you know what? We're going to have a whole another conversation. We're going to have to look over this agreement with you. Why don't we have coffee after this? And that's kind of what they were saying, is like you kind of have to in today's world. It's kind of wonky, but it is what it is, guys. We're going to keep working through it. If you have any questions about this whole lawsuit, how it affects you as a seller or as a buyer, let me know. If you are looking to sell your house, I am actually going to be starting to run a webinar series specifically talking about this, so that you can get your questions answered, so you're not going in blind, so you know what's going on, what's in your best interest. So I'll have that up and running here in the next couple weeks, but if anything, send me your email and I'll get you on the list for that. Excuse me. All right, on to the next news story here, guys. Now, this one I'm pretty excited about. As many of you know, I live in West Augustine. I believe in this area. I think it's really going to start popping off here. And for me, I'm buying and holding real estate. It's a long-term game here, right? And that's how I think everyone should look at it in terms of an investment. But if you're buying to live there, it's a different story. But Committee holds first meeting to discuss plans to develop West City area of St. Augustine. The West City CRA Steering Committee held its first meeting Thursday to discuss feedback from neighbors and business owners about what they'd like to see in the CRA. So West City is essentially right off of, it's on the west side of US 1 on King Street, and it's still within the tax district of the city of St. Augustine. So one of the main things that they want to worry about is the drainage for King Street and West City as well, affordable housing, and also addressing the sidewalks. And they're going to have another, this is just another business owner saying like, hey, at 9 or 8 o'clock, there's really not any places to go sit down. And that's one thing. I think if we had like a nice sit-down restaurant, that would bring even more traffic to the area. They just brought the Blue Hen over here, and the Blue Hen is, every day the parking lot is packed for it. It's a breakfast spot, breakfast lunch. No dinner spot though. So that would be amazing if we could get that there. But the next one is going to be on September 10th from 5 to 7 p.m. at Shiloh Baptist Church. It's going to be the meeting will be a public workshop. So I plan on going to that one just to see what's going on here. It's right down the street for me. Pretty excited about that. I think West Augustine has a lot of room to grow. And I honestly believe, like, if you're, what am I doing here? I honestly believe that, like, if you're looking for, like, old Florida and, like, the feeling of a mature neighborhood, there's just so many beautiful streets in West Augustine. Are there some houses that need some work? 1,000% there are, yeah. But on every corner you see a new construction house. You also see, like, centennial, like, oak trees. Like, they're old, like, they're huge. They're humongous canopies of trees, which in a lot of these new construction communities, which is 95% of what's going on here in St. Johns County, or HOA communities, there's not that, right? There's only a handful of communities, St. Augustine Beach, really, like St. Augustine Beach area, Vilano Beach a little bit, St. Augustine South, that have that kind of like mature, grown neighborhood feel that aren't within an HOA. So that's really rare to find. Okay. I'm going to be there at the meeting. I'll have a breakdown of what I think is going to happen, and hopefully I'll suggest some things. So let's go on to the next news story here, guys. DLP Capital Partners, come on. DLP Capital Partners buys 3 Vilano Beach properties for $15.03 million. It's a 37.88 acre deal, includes oceanfront and riverfront property. DLP Capital Partners develops attainable housing. So I don't think they're planning on developing attainable housing here, and also that just means what's attainable, right? But this is the parcel here. It's we're at 3455 Coastal Highway, so right here on A1A. This has been cleared out for a while now, so I'm guessing they picked it up and are probably going to develop it into a little community, and I think it's a great use for it. So the oceanfront parcel, they'll probably put a massive home on there, or like a duplex or a triplex or something like that line A1A. But we'll see. I don't see them putting affordable housing there. I really don't. Be cool if they did, but I don't see it. What do you guys think? You think they're going to do that? I doubt it. Especially in Vilano. Vilano is like it's more of one of the wealthier areas. Obviously, it's right on the beach. Vilano Beach is beautiful. Porpoise Point's beautiful. Just a great area. North Beach. MLS is not my favorite. Major League Soccer sucks. No, the MLS anymore, especially without this, really, I don't know what, this is the interesting thing here, John. I don't know what the MLS is going to do, because the only reason that really I would use the MLS is like, okay, there's a documents tab for like property disclosure and, whatever, HOA, CDD disclosures, all the pertinent information you put in there. But they also list agent compensation. But like in today's world, like I'm paying a lot of money to be a part of the MLS, where really it should be like an app that costs me $20 a month, maybe at the most expensive. Like just knowing what we get in terms of like what you pay for apps. Like, so without having compensation on there, I don't know what'll happen. I don't think that's gonna be a thing for much longer. I hope it's not. It'll lower my costs. I just don't see it. But we'll stay on top of it. We got CB in the house. Had the chance to take a family member to Orlando to ride the Brightline train to South Florida. I will be glad to see the day when we have train service to our area. I know it is in the works. Yeah, CB, I think. I don't know. I'm sure you've seen me cover it. I think you were on the live stream when I did it. But I think there is a master plan to connect Jacksonville and Orlando, and that would be along the same train line that would connect, where we talked about St. Augustine maybe wanting to add a railroad station from St. Augustine to Jacksonville. So if they just knock that out in one foul swoop, connect everything to Orlando, then you got the Bright Line, going to South Florida from there. I think that'd be pretty sweet. And then they're even talking about doing stuff, north of Jacksonville, going to Georgia and connecting a little bit better with Amtrak. So we'll stay on top of that. I hope they do it, because anymore, you know what? Funny enough, you bring this up. I was just talking to my barber, got a fresh cut, but I didn't want to show it off to you guys. Talked to my barber, and he was like, he cuts his hair, or cuts my hair and everyone else's hair at his house, right? Since the pandemic, he's kind of switched it up, saves him money. He doesn't have to go anywhere. He's like, I let my car insurance go. I think I don't care about driving anywhere anymore. And here, that's kind of wild because there's no public transportation. But if you got one of those e-bikes, you're still going to be fine, I would say. Going to be hot and sweating, but you're still going to be fine. But he was like, just the cost of insurance has gone up so much that he's like, for my truck, and he owns like an old pickup truck. It's really nice. It doesn't have AC or anything, but it's a very nice pickup truck. I think it's like one of the old Ford like square bodies. Can't remember what it's called, but either way, he was like, yeah, they want to charge me $180, a month for insurance for just this truck. And he's like, it's kind of insane, like for me to pay that just to drive around. I've never been in any accidents. The truck is 20, 30 years old. He's like, what gives? Why is it $180? So I feel like with this, this is train service, but adding more public transportation is something that we need here. But I also think we need more walkable areas. We need stuff like where I don't need to get in a car, right? And I can just walk somewhere, which here in West Augustine we have a little bit of. Downtown St. Augustine you're going to have more of, but there's no major shopping center downtown, right? So you can't go to like a grocery store. You have to drive to a grocery store to get it delivered. So I think all the public transportation we need it here, especially with, and this is reality, right? And this is just common sense. You can't make any more roads in downtown St. Augustine. It was established in 1565 for horse and buggy. There's houses, there's commercial space, there's sidewalks. There's nowhere to go unless you're building above. So we're going to have to do something, right? And St. Johns County continues to grow. So what do? Public transportation. Either way, I'm going to get off my high horse. Let me get down here. CB, appreciate you for always chiming in. Oh, we got one more here. CB, attainable if you have the coins. That's it. You got to have the wares. You got to have the coins. All right, on to the next news story here, guys. I got one more for you, and then I'm going to hop off, but this is a good thing. So let me share my news at my screen here. 2 new schools in St. Johns County are open, helping ease overcrowding in schools. Someone needs to call up Action News Jacks. This is the story, and look how small it is. Like, they need some help with their marketing, because it's too much. It's too much. Like, why can I only see half the screen? What's up? Can I close this? Okay, so that helps a little bit, but either way. Lakeside Academy in the Beacon Lake community and Trout Creek Academy in the Shearwater neighborhood. So that's very interesting too, is we're starting to see all these master plan communities get K-8 schools within them, right? Which is very attractive if you have a family, because then you don't have to leave your community to take your kid to school. It turns, maybe a 10, 20-minute commute to hop on your bike and go to school, or I'll take you with the golf cart. Both new schools can accommodate 1,500 students, and this is part of the plan for St. Johns County. They're building 5 new schools over the next, up until 2026, and this is 2 out of the 5, so we got 3 more coming. There are about 52,000 students total in St. Johns County, and the student population only continues to grow. Problem is that new schools cost $68 million each, which, if I remember correctly, prior to the pandemic, it cost us $35 million to build the most recent school. And that was the big thing. They were asking for bids and they were negotiating, and they lost money on the negotiation. It was pretty bad. The 2 new schools are part of the 5 new schools set to open by 2026 to meet the needs of the rapidly growing district. As of right now, Lakeside Academy, they're welcoming 1,300 students. They're only doing grade 1 through 7, or K through 7, my mistake. And next year it'll expand it up through the 8th grade. So I'm not exactly sure why they detached the 8th grade from that K through 8. Kind of interesting. But as of right now, they have 1,300 students this year, so they can accommodate up to 1,500. So I think that makes good sense. They have about 200 person wiggle room for the 8th grade students within the community. So that's it, guys. That's what I got for you this week. Hope you guys are having a great week. If you have any questions, I'll hang on here for just a little bit more. So you can type them up on your phones or on your computers, whatever that is. Oops. But yeah, I think it's. I think the biggest thing to take away is that, like, and this is something interesting that I thought of too, is I always wondered why agents are paid on commission, right? Like, why would someone want to take that? And really, I think what people want is they want good service, right? And they want to pay as least amount as possible for it. But that would mean you'd have to almost corporatize the real estate agent's job. And with any type of corporation, take any corporation that you have to deal with at a large scale right now. If you call them for customer service, their customer service sucks. So I imagine that would actually be the opposite thing that people would want. So I just don't see how you could really make a corporate, like, I know there's large teams within real estate. I don't see how you could make a corporate aspect of this job, because it's kind of on demand a lot of times. Like, it's when you as the consumer need to talk to me, right? Or need my services. So that could be on a Saturday at 2 p.m. That could be on a Tuesday or a Wednesday at 8 o'clock. That could be, we could be talking at 9, 10 o'clock about offers. It's not a job for the week, that's for sure, because you work all the time. And the reason, this is the reason why agents get paid a commission, is because sometimes their job goes well and they get paid well. Sometimes their job does not go well and they don't get paid well. And I've experienced both of those. The other side of that is that if you want to have real estate agents live in the community, they have to make money that is relative to the housing costs. So I was like, well, that's really interesting, because if we didn't make money relative to the housing costs, well, we wouldn't be able to afford to live here probably, right? And then you wouldn't have real estate agents. Then you just have sellers and buyers negotiating themselves, which is possible, which is very possible. But let's see what questions we got here, guys. I'll get off my soapbox. Not a question, but I agree. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like, I know a little bit about social media marketing and creating a good website and stuff like that, but doesn't seem like the person who's working that knows a damn thing, because your eye is drawn all over the place. You don't even, like, I clicked for that specific news story, you could barely see it. They've got it broken up into so many chunks because they got all these ads and junk on there and videos, and they really need to clean it up. They really need to clean it up. But I agree. Half of the Action News anchors live in St. Johns County. Live, sorry. I read that wrong. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, CB, is like, I don't know where they live, but a lot of the news stories that people report on, like, I'm saying that it's a paragraph, like, where they don't even put any type of work into it. And it's like, at this point, I feel like I could be a reporter for any of these places and do a 10 times better job, run a weekly live or a daily live and cover these things in depth. Like, I ask questions, It doesn't seem like these guys ask any questions. But whatever, I'm not going to become a reporter, guys. I'll be a realtor. Just use me for that. Buy, sell, and invest. But that's it, guys. I appreciate you here. Hope you guys are having a great week. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. I'm going to hop off, eat some more food. I'm still hungry. Fasted today. My first fast in a long time. I'm doing 75 hard. Don't know if you guys ever heard about that. I've done it before. Completed it once this year. Fell off the wagon. And now I need to lock back in, So 2 workouts a day, gallon of water a day, reading 10 pages of a business book, taking a progress photo every day, and not eating like complete garbage, not drinking either. And I don't really drink, so it's not really a big deal for me. 75 days without drinking, I do that on accident. But either way, guys, I'll let you go. Appreciate you every Wednesday at 8 p.m. going over the market stats, news you know about, think about buying, selling, or investing here in Northeastern Florida. And we're doing a Q&A. CB, John, you guys are awesome. Really appreciate you for always chiming in and always watching the lives. You guys are the best. We also got 8 other people in here. Y'all are fantastic. Hope you have a great week. See ya.